Hi, a wonderful day to all of you. I hope that all of you are doing well and safe together with your families, friends, relatives, and loved ones, especially after those typhoons that hit our country. Our current situation is really heartbreaking and very depressing for all of us. But, of course, let's not forget to thank God for our life, diba? For all the blessings that we receive despite of all the calamities and despite of the pandemic. So thank God for our life and for our families. Okay? So let us keep our faith to God. Let us continue praying and asking God for His mercy, love, protection, and guidance for all of us. So, tuloy lang ang laban, tuloy lang ang buhay. Let's just be calm and do our best. Sabi nga nila, there is always a rainbow after the rain. There is always a sunshine that gives us hope. So, huwag tayong mawala ng pag-asa. Laban lang at tuloy lang ang buhay. So, tuloy lang din ang ating pag-aaral. Okay? So, for this week, our topic is about nutritional management of disease conditions. And under this topic, under this diet therapy, so we have 8 conditions that we will be talking. And for this week, we will discuss about diabetes mellitus or DM and your cardiovascular disease. So let us begin with diabetes mellitus. So when we talk about diabetes, I'm sure you are very familiar with this. Ang iisipin nyo kaagad, mataas ang sugar level, di ba? Or hindi gumaling ang sugat, naputulan ng paa. So yan kaagad yung papasok sa isip ninyo kapag pinag-uusapan ang diabetes. So the incidence of diabetes is growing around the world. It is the top 10 or it is one of the top 10 leading cause of disease of death among people around the world, and the Filipinos are not an exemption to this incidence. Okay, so marami ang mga Filipino din ang affected. So according to WHO in 2011, so diabetes ranked number 7 among the Filipinos, no? Number 7 siya sa leading causes of mortality in the Philippines. So, in that data, sabi nila, there is one diabetic patient among 25 Filipinos. So, mayroong isa na may diabetes sa 25 katao. Okay, ganun siya. So, diabetes occurs when the body or when the pancreas fails to produce enough insulin, or when the body fails to effectively utilize the insulin that is being produced. Okay? Yan. So, insulin, ano ba si insulin? It is a hormone that needed to convert sugar, starches, and other food into energy. So, kailangan i-convert ni insulin, yung mga kinakain natin sugar, starches, or yung mga carbohydrates, i-convert siya para maging energy para maggamit ng inyong body. So, gagamitan ng inyong body para makapag-function kayo, makapag-aral, makalakad, makakain, makatulog. So, lahat yon ginagamitan ang energy. So, insulin is produced in the body by the pancreas. And diabetes is a metabolic disorder that can strike at any age. So, wala siyang pinipili, maging bata or matanda. And there are several types of diabetes. So, we have type 1 diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the body does not produce any insulin. So, wala talaga siyang pinoproduce na insulin. While in type 2 diabetes, the body is not making enough or losing sensitivity to insulin made. So, pwedeng merong insulin na na-produce si pancreas but not enough to convert those sugar para magamit siya into energy. So, in this figure, makikita ninyo for the type 1 diabetes, Okay, so what happened is, ano ba ang nangyayari? So the stomach, the stomach converts food to glucose. So pag kumain ka ng halimbawa, carbohydrates, ano ba yung example ng carbohydrates mo? Is your rice, your bread, okay? Or any food that contain carbohydrates or sugar. Okay? Yung stomach mo, i-convert siya into glucose. And then, the glucose enters to your bloodstream. So, papasok siya dyan sa iyong blood vessels. Then, the pancreas makes little or no insulin. So, ang nangyayari sa type 1, konti lang or wala talaga siyang napoproduce na insulin para yung glucose na yan is ma-convert into energy. Okay. So, little or no insulin enters the bloodstream. And then, the glucose builds up in the bloodstream. Kaya, dahil walang insulin para i-convert yung glucose into energy para makapasok siya doon sa cell or sa organs. Okay? Para maggamit ng iyong body. So, hindi siya mako-convert. So, what will happen? Nag-a-accumulate yung glucose doon sa iyong blood vessels or sa iyong blood. Okay? That's why, glucose level increase. So, pag kinuhanan mo siya ng blood test, makikita na tumaas ang kanyang glucose level. So, what will happen naman doon sa type 2 diabetes? Okay, so again, pag kumain ka ng carbohydrates, yung sugar, yung bread, rice, and etc. So, your stomach then converts food to glucose. And then, the glucose enters the bloodstream. So, papasok siya dyan. What will happen here sa type 2 diabetes, the pancreas produces sufficient insulin, but it is resistant to effective use. Merong insulin. So, parang susi lang yan. May susi. Ang insulin is parang susi. It's like a key. Okay? Meron siya dito para mabuksan yung cell para makapasok siya. Makapasok yung glucose doon sa cell. Magamit ng iyong body. But what will happen here, meron ngang susi, meron ka ngang insulin, but it is defective. So, pwedeng sira yung insulin, kaya hindi siya magamit para makapasok doon yung glucose. Okay, doon sa cell. Okay. The glucose unable to enter the bodies effectively nga. Kasi nga, may problem doon sa insulin. And then, again, the glucose levels increase in the bloodstream. So, makikita mo, mataas din ang kanyang blood glucose level. So, ito lang yung another figure para mas maintindihan ninyo. Yung key dito, itong susi na to, this is your insulin. So, merong insulin receptor. Okay? So, siya yung magbubukas dapat dyan. Si insulin dapat ang mag-open yan para yung glucose mo dito is makapasok doon sa cell. Yung cell, diba? Our body is made up of million cells para mag-function. Okay, para makapasok siya, maging energy siya, magamit siya ng iyong cell, magamit ng ating katawan. But, kung if defective ito, or wala kang susi, so hindi talaga makakapasok. So, parang bahay lang yan. Pag naiwan mo yung susi mo, hindi ka makakapasok. Or kapag sira yung doorknob mo, so hindi makakapasok. Hindi ka makakapasok sa loob. So, ikaw, yun yung glucose. So, another types of diabetes, may tinatawag tayong secondary. Okay? Secondary is a sequence from another disease. For example, may pancreatitis or cystitis fibrosis. So, parang secondary na siya. Meron talagang other diseases. Siyempre, pag may pancreatitis, ibig sabihin ng pancreatitis or cystic fibrosis, so merong problem doon sa pancreas. There is an inflammation of the pancreas. So, kapag may problema si pancreas, then of course, ano nga ba ang function ni pancreas? To produce insulin. So, syempre, kapag defective yung isang factory, hindi rin siya makakapag-produce. So, pwede rin, kaya nagkakaroon ng secondary diabetes. And another type is gestational diabetes. Usually occurs during pregnancy. So, bakit nagkakaroon naman ng diabetes or gestational diabetes during pregnancy? It is because the body of the pregnant woman is actually adjusting or nagpo-produce siya ng maraming hormones. Okay. So, dahil nagpo-produce siya ng maraming hormones, nagkakaroon din ng maraming changes. So, possible din, nagkaroon siya ng maraming changes, nagkakaroon din ng weight gain. So, prone ang mga buntis sa gestational diabetes. Kaya dapat din i-advise natin sila or tuturuan natin sila ng proper diet. And another type is impaired glucose tolerance. So this is an intermediate between normal and diabetes. Okay. So pinapakita ko lang dito sa figure na to kung ano ang itsura ni pancreas. So, ganyan si pancreas. So, nandyan siya, malapit sa iyong splenic, sa stomach. So, nakalay siya banda dyan. So, this is your pancreas na siya yung, anong purpose niya? To produce insulin. So, yun yung anatomy of your pancreas, no? So, your pancreas is a gland that lies behind your stomach. It is a cluster of cells inside the pancreas known as the islets of Langerhans that produces 3 hormones. Yung hormones na yon known as the alpha, beta, and delta. The alpha cells, it produces the glucagon, while the beta cells produce your insulin, and delta cells produce somatostatin. These cells have special sensors that monitor levels of blood sugar and stimulate the release of correct hormones. So, insulin and other hormones. So, yung sinasabi natin glucagon kanina. So, glucagon is a hormone that increases the amount of glucose in the body when it is needed. So, siya yung lalabas kung kinakailangan ng iyong body ng glucose, merong napakababa ng glucose doon sa bloodstream mo. Somatostatin is the hormone that can suppress both glucagon and insulin when needed naman. So, kung tumaas naman, so si somatostatin naman ang mag-control. And insulin is the hormone that lowers blood glucose. Okay, baka naguluhan kayo, but lowers blood glucose? Ilo-lower na yung blood glucose doon sa iyong blood. Okay, blood nga. Kaya nga galing sa blood. Kasi papasok siya doon sa cell para magamit as your energy. Okay? How does insulin work? A person normally secretes insulin in response to an elevated blood sugar. Okay, it does this by accelerating blood sugar's movement out of the blood and into the cell. So, tulad nga sinabi ko kanina, na si insulin, siya yung susi para makapasok ang glucose na nandoon sa iyong blood to your cell para magamit siya as your energy. Cells will not allow blood sugar in without the insulin. So, parang susi nga siya, hindi niya papapasukin kung walang insulin. Hindi mabubuksan yung receptor ni cell, which may further cause a problem or complication to the person suffering with diabetes. Why isn't the body making insulin? In people with type 1, the immune system has made a big mistake. So, malaki ang mistake ng iyong katawan sa type 1 diabetes. In people with type 1 diabetes daw, the immune system makes the body's own healthy cells for foreign invaders. So, the immune system attacks and destroys the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. So, siya mismo yung sumisira. After these beta cells are destroyed, the body is unable to produce insulin. That's what happened kapag may type 1 diabetes. Kaya yung type 1 diabetes or type 1 diabetic patient, kinakailangan nila ng insulin kasi wala talaga silang insulin. So, ang gamot nila is kailangan talaga nilang mag-injection ng insulin. Okay? In people with type 2, the pancreas is still making insulin. So, gumagawa sila. Just not enough to keep up, or their bodies have become insulin resistant. So, hindi na tinatanggap, hindi na nagagamit. Sira na si insulin. So, hindi na siya magamit to open the insulin receptor para makapasok si glucose to the cell. So, in type 1, it is usually diagnosed in children and young adults. So, must take daily insulin shots to stay alive. So, kinakailangan nilang mag-insulin shot. And it accounts for 5 to 10% of the population with diabetes. While in type 2 diabetes, this is the most common form of the disease. Approximately 50% of men and 70% of women are obese at the time of diagnosis. Oh my God. Paano yan, obese ako? So, kaya nga, kapag medyo nag-overweight na, pinapababa na yung ating calorie intake. Dapat magkaroon ka na ng weight loss. Magbawas ka na. Kasi kapag obese ka na, prone ka na to different kind of illness, different kind of diseases, lalo na yung diabetes, cardiovascular disorder, and etc. So, nearing epidemic proportions due to increased number of older Americans. So, sa Amerika kasi napakarami ng kanilang case. So, parang epidemic din siya. Greater occurrence of obesity and sedentary lifestyle. And gestational diabetes. So, pregnant women have a higher insulin level, usually sila. If woman has hyperglycemia, her blood glucose crosses the placenta, but her insulin does not. So, you have to remember that, na kahit anong kinakain ng pregnant woman, so, kapag tumaas ang kanyang blood sugar, kapag tumaas ang kanyang kain siya ng matatamis, kain siya ng ice cream, kain ng chocolate. So, bawal talaga yan sa pregnant woman. Kasi you have to note na yung blood glucose, yung blood glucose can pass through your placenta. Pupunta siya doon sa baby. So, the tendency, pwedeng yung baby tumaas din, tumaas ang kanyang weight, pwede rin maging prone yung baby. So, tandaan mo, kapag nag-cross yung blood glucose, hindi kasama dun yung insulin. Hindi ba kailangan yung insulin? Kasi yun yung susi para makapasok yung blood glucose to the cell of the body. So, what are the symptoms of diabetes? So, meron tayong sinasabing polyphagia. So, polyphagia is, ito yung madaling magutom ang patient. Or it means excessive hunger. Talagang crave, madaling magutom. Polyuria is increased urination or ihi naman ng ihi si patient. Polydipsia, so sobrang pagkauhaw. Uhaw na uhaw. Blurred vision, so kasi affected na, pwedeng mataas ang kanyang blood glucose level, kaya affected na rin yung mga blood vessels sa eyes. Poor ang kanyang wound healing. Bakit naging poor ang wound healing ng patient na mayroong blood glucose? Siyempre, lumalapot yung blood. So, hindi makapass through talaga. So, hindi mataas ang kanyang sugar level. So, hindi makadaloy ng husto ang blood towards the body. So, hindi maisupply ng maayos yung oxygen and the nutrients that is needed for wound healing. So, irritable din ang patient na mayroong diabetes. So, madali silang magkaroon ng mood changes. So, affected ang kanilang mood kapag mataas ang blood sugar. So, diabetes mellitus type 1. So, ito lang yung pinaka mnemonics natin, the sign and symptoms, no? Sinabi ko na kanina, yung polyuria, increased urination, polydipsia, increase yung thirst, polyphagia or polyphagia is the same term. Increase yung kanyang hunger. Okay, so type 1 diabetes, may weight loss. Bakit may weight loss dito? Naku, sabi nyo, papayat pala pag may type 1 diabetes mellitus. Kasi usually, dahil nga, wala nga kasi insulin yung patient. So, wala siyang insulin na magagamit. Kaya, meron siyang weight loss. May fatigue, meron ding increase yung kanyang frequency of infections. Okay, rapid ang onset nito. So, insulin dependent sila. So, kinakailangan nila ng insulin to stay alive. And it has familial tendency or genetic ang nature. And the peak incidence is from 10 to 15 years old. While the type 2 diabetes, ito yung sedentary lifestyle lang kasi nood lang ng TV, walang lakad-lakad, or tulad sa atin ngayon, puro aral lang, puro upo, puro computer, di ba? So, kailangan din natin mag-exercise, kailangan din natin maglakad-lakad, kailangan din natin magpapawis. Okay? Pwede rin familial tendency din siya or genetic na mamana. So, the average age is 50 years. So, average siya, no? Hindi ibig sabihin na 50 lang. So, pwedeng below 50 years old and above 50 years old. So, history of hypertension or increase ang kanyang BP. So, fatigue kasi decrease ang kanyang energy level. So, madali kang mahilo talaga dahil wala kang magagamit na energy. Dahil yung blood glucose mo, hindi siya mapupunta doon sa cell para magamit mo as energy. Nandoon lang siya sa blood, yung glucose. So, obese, recurrent infection. So, bakit ba prone magkaroon ng infection? Dahil nga yung blood circulation, hindi maayos ang blood circulation, pwedeng ihi ng ihi si patient, kaya prone na magkaroon ng infection. Polyuria, polydipsia, and the FBS or fasting blood sugar is above or greater than 160 mg per dl. So, how are you diagnosed with diabetes? So, paano mo malaman na may diabetes ka? Okay? The normal fasting glucose is less than 110 mg per dl. So, yun yung normal. So, impaired fasting glucose kapag above or more than 110 and less than 126 mg per dl. Impaired fasting glucose na yung tawag natin doon. But provisional diagnosis for diabetes kapag meron na siyang more than 126 mg per dl ang kanyang blood glucose level. In order to be diagnosed with diabetes, the person must have symptoms of diabetes. Ano nga ba yung mga symptoms? Yung poliphagia or polydipsia, polyuria, and fatigue. Ayan. Causal plasma glucose above 200, no? Pag fasting blood glucose naman, ang kinukuha natin, masasabi natin may diabetes, may diabetes siya kapag more than 126 mg per dl. Pag sinasabi natin fasting blood glucose, ito yung pinagfa-fasting yung pasyente. Hindi pwedeng kumain, hindi pwedeng uminom, at least 8 hours bago kuhanan ng blood sugar or FBS, bago gawin ang FBS. So, at least 8 hours ang fasting niya. And 2-hour plasma glucose level, from the word 2 hours, so 2 hours lang yung kanyang fasting. So, the result is more than 200 mg per dl on oral glucose test. So, American Diabetes Association, ito yung diagnostic criteria for the diabetes mellitus. So, pwede nyo itong bagbasihan. So, ito yung normal glucose tolerance, impaired glucose tolerance, or may pre-diabetes na yung patient, and diabetes mellitus na talaga siya. And on this column, ito yung type, or ito yung kind of procedure. Okay? Tapos, ito yung mga results niya. For example, sa fasting plasma glucose, ito na yung normal, impaired na siya. Normal, sa fasting plasma glucose, normal is below 100 mg per dl. So, sometimes nag-iiba-iba, no? Depende doon sa inyong reference or depende doon sa nakikita nating source. Pero, ito naman ay malapit naman sila, okay? Pre-diabetic na kapag yung fasting plasma glucose niya is 100 to 125 mg, diba? So, kapag more than 126 na siya or equal to 126, that could be diagnosed as diabetes mellitus. So, example na yan sa fasting plasma glucose. O, kapag sa 2-hour plasma glucose naman, so hindi ko na ito uulitin kasi ito naman yung kanina, diba? Random blood glucose plus symptoms of diabetes. Okay, random. So, walang pag sinasabi natin random blood glucose, basta kinuhanan na lang. So, walang fasting ang patient dito. And for your A1C or hemoglobin A1C, ito naman din yung kaniyang normal range, no? So, less than 5.6%, normal, but above 5.6 or 5.7 to 6.4 could be pre-diabetes na, and then equal or greater than 6.5% could be diagnosed as diabetes mellitus. Okay? So, who are at risk? Sino ba? So, the American Diabetes Association now recommends that screening for diabetes should be considered for all patients at the age of 45. So, hindi lang, ay wala namang sign and symptoms. So, pag nag-age na ng 45, kailangan tingnan na natin, kailangan i-check na yung blood sugar. Huwag mo nang antayin na lumala pa. Okay? So, you can advise your parents, your brothers, sisters, and relatives, or friends na nasa above 45 na dapat magpapacheck up na talaga. Not only for the blood sugar, is of course for the cholesterol level as well. Kasi yung age na yan na talaga ang prone na sa mga different kinds of diseases dahil nga meron tayong tinatawag na wear and tear of our system. So, marami na talagang pwedeng maging sakit sa age na yan. If the results are normal, it should be repeated every 3 years. So, hindi porket after 45, nakita mo na normal naman. So, wala na, hayaan mo na. So, kailangan uulitin siya every 3 years. And screening should be considered at a younger age if patients meets the following risk factors. Okay, kahit below 45 pa siya, kung the patient is obese, ang taba ni patient. Okay, so paano malaman na may obesity si patient? Again, you can do your BMI computation. Okay, diba 30 above is already considered obese, and 25 na BMI, tama ba? So, pwedeng above 25 could be a sign of overweight. So, first degree relative with diabetes. Sino ba yung first degree relative? O kung brother, mother, father, merong diabetes, brother, sister, mother, father, merong diabetes. So, prone na rin yung mga anak, prone na rin yung mga kapatid. So, dapat magpapacheck na kahit even at the younger age. So, those who belongs to a high-risk ethnic group, pag sinabi natin ethnic group, ito yung hilig nilang kainin. Just like nasa US, napakahilig nilang kumain ng, di ba malalaki talaga yung mga kinakain nila, yung serving nila, malalaki talaga, at matataba rin talaga sila. So, kahit sa Pilipino, marami na rin ganun. So, and also those patient or pregnant women na na-diagnose with diabetes or nag-deliver ng baby whose birth weight is greater than 9 pounds. So, risk din yun. Pwede rin siya. And those who have hypertension. So, also yung meron ding mga high-density lipoprotein level na above 35 or triglyceride na above 250. Sorry for the high level density lipoprotein. This is less than 35. So, kung sobrang mababa ng 35, so high risk na rin sila. And those who have found to have impaired glucose tolerance or impaired fasting on a previous test. So, I've got diabetes. So, now what? So, nakita mo, may diabetes pala. Or na-diagnose ng diabetes ang isa sa inyong kapatid or your parents. So, after diagnosis, of course, there is a great need for education. So, ano yung dapat mong educate sa patient? So, pwede mong gamitin ang iyong natutunan sa nutrition, the diabetic diet therapy. A diabetic diet is no different from anyone else, but they must keep track on what they eat. Titingnan mo na kung ano yung kinakain nila. Baka masyadong mataas ang sugar content. Hindi porket, di ba, sabi nila, fruits is healthy. You have to take note, no? Kahit sa mangga lang, one slice of, pag may diabetes, isang pisngi lang ng mango, maliit lang, yun lang dapat ang sa kanila, dahil mataas din ang sugar content of the fruits. A food diary is a great start para alam mo, turuan mo siya ang patient na mag-food diary, diba? Inano na natin yung food records, yan. ipapractice mo na, isusulat mo na sa breakfast, ano yung kinakain niya, ano yung kinain niya sa lunch, merienda, dinner. So, para mabalikan mo, sobrang mataas na pala ang sugar content ng mga kinakain ko. So, the serving sizes must be emphasized. Katulad ng sinabi ko, for the fruit, halimbawa, isang piece lang or one slice of mango. Okay? So, these are the basic control of diabetes mellitus, no? Ito yung mga basic, of course, especially for those type 1 or those patient diagnosed with type 1 diabetes mellitus, they need insulin kasi wala talaga silang insulin. So, kinakailangan nilang mag-insulin. And for those with type 2 diabetes mellitus, they can have oral hypoglycemic agents. But depende pa rin kung kaya. But even naka-oral hypoglycemic na siya, hindi na siya sedentary lifestyle, nag-exercise na siya, okay yung kanyang dietary plan, pero mataas pa rin ang kanyang blood glucose level, so probably the patient may also need insulin. Kaya napapansin nyo, for those patients who have type 2 diabetes, bakit sila obese or malalaki? Usually, nagkakaroon sila ng weight gain. Kasi si insulin din pala, nakakatulong siya doon sa body mo para ma-open yung receptor para makapasok yung blood glucose, ma-convert into energy. But then, pwede rin kasi siyang tumulong din sa pag-store ng fats. Okay? Ganun din. Meron din siyang other effect na nag-i-store ng fats dun sa katawan. Kaya yung mga type 2 diabetes mellitus, tumataba sila, lalo na pag gumagamit ng insulin. Of course, healthy eating. Ayan, i-check natin kung ano yung mga dapat lang kainin niya. Regular exercises, suitable for one's medical condition naman talaga yan. And avoid stress factors. Kasi yung stress factors din pala, pag sobrang pagod ka rin or sobrang stress ka, sobrang pagod ka sa work, pwede ring mag-lead, pwedeng tumaas ang iyong blood sugar. Kasi may mga other hormones na nasisecrete ang iyong body. Yung mga stress hormones na yon, na pag tumaas siya, pwede rin siyang mag-influence sa pagtaas ng iyong blood glucose. So, yung stress naman there are controllable types and meron ding uncontrollable factors ng stress. Okay, yung pwede mong i-control, pwede rin hindi. Okay? So, here in this figure or in this presentation, titingnan natin yung stress and blood glucose level. So, ano ang nagagawa ng stress to your blood glucose level? So, yung stress hormones are also known to increase insulin resistance. And the response is more pronounced in individuals with diabetes as compared to healthy subjects. So, mas may effect siya doon, lalo na kapag may diabetes. Lalo na, yung hyperglycemia daw is particularly exaggerated by elevation of cortisol and epinephrine. So, in diabetes. So, ang mangyayari, or as a consequence of an altered response of the liver to these hormones, pwedeng tumaas din yung kanyang stress level. So, we have to know that cortisol here, so you can see here the cortisol, that is your fight or flight hormone. So, it is designed to let you know when you are in danger. So, lalabas yung hormone na yan, si cortisol, diba? Fight or flight hormones. Tapos, but, pag nasa stress ka or nasa danger ka, but too much of it in the blood, pwede rin magkaroon ng other effect to your body. So, pwedeng tumaas yung blood glucose. Okay, so pag nag-increase yung mga stress hormones na yan. So, the treatment goals for type 1 diabetes is of course to match insulin to food intake. So, pwede mo titingnan kung gaano kadami yung kinakain, gaano kadami rin yung insulin na kinakailangan ni patient. Type 1s are encouraged to be precise and regular from day to day with food intake, insulin regimen, and activity. So, dapat same lang. Kung yung ano yung kinakain nila, same yung content ng sugar, ng carbohydrates, para same din yung maibibigay na insulin. Kasi nga, di ba, kung gaano kadami yung kinakain niya, kung masyadong maraming sugar, tas kunti lang din yung insulin na binigay mo, so possible pa rin tumaas yung blood glucose level. So, exercise and type 1 diabetes, okay? Pag may exercise yung patient, it increases flexibility, muscular strength, and well-being. So, you have to, as a nurse, you must monitor insulin and food intake to match exercise regimen. So, tama lang din yun. So, dapat alam mo rin kung gaano kadami ang insulin na ginamit niya para alam mo kung gaano rin kadami dapat yung exercise na gawin ng patient. Increases insulin effectiveness and sensitivity to the body kapag may exercise si patient. So, the treatment goals for type 2 is to achieve normal or near normal blood glucose level. So, provide adequate calories for reasonably body weight and prevent delay or treat nutrition related to complications. Improve health through optimal nutrition. So, very important talaga yung planning mo. Ang food na dapat kakainin ni patient, kung gaano kadami ang carbohydrates, kung gaano kadami ang exchanges na ibibigay mo for the patient. For type 2 diabetes, yung exercise is beneficial for them also. It promotes weight loss. It increases insulin sensitivity. So, kapag nag-exercise ka pala, so, gagana yung pwedeng gumaling ang iyong insulin, ang iyong, para magamit siya, para ma-open niya ang iyong cell receptor or glucose receptor para makapasok si glucose towards the cell. Must also be aware of medication and intake to prevent hypoglycemia. Baka naman sobrang, pinag-diet mo, kinuntian mo yung food, baka naman mag-hypoglycemia ka naman. You have to note the two effect, yung pwedeng effect ng diabetes na pwedeng hypoglycemia. When you say hypoglycemia, sobrang baba ng kanyang blood glucose level, below 80 naman, milligram per DL. So, the dietary management of diabetes mellitus, diet plays a major role. So, kailangan talaga, very important talaga yung diet, yung kinakain ni patient. Titingnan talaga kung gaano kadami ang content ng sugar nun. So, diet should be individualized, again, depende doon sa need ng patient, depende sa kanyang insulin, sa kanyang glucose level. Okay? Carbohydrates are the component of food that causes an increase in blood sugar, so you have to take note for that. Diabetics are encouraged to keep track of the amount of CHO or carbohydrates that they eat. So, dapat monitor nila yon. So, the energy allowance, it is based on height, weight, age, sex, and occupation or activity. Kasi diba kung ano ba yung sedentary lifestyle ba siya. Then the protein requirement for those who have a diabetic, it is recommended that you will give 1.12 grams per kilogram based on DBW or desired body weight, or about 10 to 20% of the total calories. For the CHO, you can give at least 45 to 65% of total calories doon. So, based on sa iyong computation. And for fats, you can give 25 to 30% of the total calories. So, this is now the guide for calculating the total amount of calories. Ito yung pwede mong basihan for overweight, normal, and underweight. So, titingnan mo dito kung sedentary yung lifestyle, kung light yung lifestyle niya or work, moderate, or make activity, sobra yan, talagang mas mataas siya. So, ito yung base natin, yung mga figures na nandyan. So, the methods of carbohydrate control. So, there are many new methods of controlling diabetes. These are still the two most common. So, ang dami namang ginagawa talaga, ang daming research, ang daming ginagawa to control diabetes. But then, ang pinaka-effective pa rin, yung ating exchange list or food exchange list. So, di ba napansin nyo doon sa exchange list kung ilan lang dapat, ano ang size naka-specify doon, kung ilang grams dapat ang pwedeng kainin. Because your food exchange list was actually designed for patient with diabetes. So, carbohydrate counting. So, ito yung very basic. It allows a little more freedom and variety. Okay? So, blood glucose monitoring. So, all diabetics must keep track on blood glucose level. So, kinakailangan i-monitor nila. Kaya, meron silang kit na dapat sa bahay. Minsan, minamonitor nila yan, morning, afternoon. So, pag hindi pa normal, pag nag-normalize na, pwedeng every other day. This is the one way to know if the treatment is effective. Effective ba? Bumaba ba yung blood glucose? Iba ka naman hindi, kahit na nag-diet si patient, kahit na plant talaga yung kanyang meal, kahit nag-exercise si patient or nag-take ng medication, but despite of those treatment, mataas pa rin. So, meaning, hindi siya treatment. You have to look for another way for treatment. Gives a diabetic indication of what affects their blood sugar level. So, pwede mong through blood glucose monitoring, pwede mong malaman, kasi kain ako ng kain ng ganito, kasi ito yung kinain ko ng kinain, kaya mataas talaga yung blood sugar ko. So, must check at least 2 times a day and 4 times a day for at least 3 days a week. Okay, 2 times a day and 4 times a day for at least 3 days a week. So, for hemoglobin A1C, no? Ito yung a good indicator of blood glucose. Here, hindi na to kailangan ng fasting kapag kinuha siya. Gives a percent that indicates control over the preceding 2 to 3 months. So, makikita niya, malukbak niya to kung gaano kadami ang sugar na nakain mo or gaano kadami ang sugar sa iyong bloodstream during those previous 2 to 3 months. So, it must be performed 2 times a year. So, again, pinasa ko na to kanina. Meron na to tayong sample in the previous slides, no? Yung kung ano yung level niya. So, 6% indicates good condition. And above 8% indicates that there is an action needed. Like, giving medication or diabetic medication, a modifying diet of the patient, and of course, advising or instructing the patient to do exercise. So, these are the dietary guidelines, okay, na pwede nyo i-instruct or i-include in your health teaching to the patient or pag meron kayong kilala. So, pwede nyo, you can advise your patient to eat a diet that is low in saturated and total fat, moderate in sodium and sugar. Kasi 'di ba lahat 'yun, yung total fat, yung saturated fat, sodium, kapag pwedeng tumaas ang blood pressure. So it may also affect the increase of your blood glucose level. So you have to eat 5 or more fruits and vegetables a day and choose a diet that is rich in whole grains. So mas maganda whole grains ang kakainin nila. And moderate use of alcohol, or dapat hindi na. And then, eat at the same time every day, at least within 1 hour or regular time. So, kung anong oras siya sa araw na yun, bakit kinakailangan na same time a day? Kasi para yung paggamit ng insulin, paglabas ng blood glucose, diba? Pagpunta ng sugar doon sa bloodstream, at least, controlled siya. Kung halimbawa, the same yung interval niya, okay? Para hindi rin mahirapan yung iyong body. Okay? The same yung interval, kaya kakain siya same time a day. Kung halimbawa, kung everyday kakain siya ng breakfast every 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock for lunch, and then 6 o'clock for dinner. So, dapat halos the same time a day. Eat about the same amount of carbohydrates with each meal. So, kung half cup of rice ka lang, so the same for each meal. How to avoid complications? Alam naman natin na napakarami ng complications na yung diabetic, di ba? Pwedeng affected, pwedeng magkaroon ng retinopathy, okay? Pwedeng mabulag si patient, pwedeng magkaroon ng problem sa kidney, pwedeng pwedeng maputol ang kanyang paa kasi yung wound healing is very affected. So, you have to control weight. So, how will you do to control your weight? Is of course by modifying the diet of the patient, instructing the patient to do exercise. Eat a healthy, well-balanced diet. Yun na yun, exercise. And of course, you have to do regular checkups. Huwag mong pabayaan ang sarili mo, or you instruct the patient na hindi nila dapat pabayaan ang sarili nila because they feel better. Kasi mas baka bigla na lang, sobrang taas ng kanyang blood sugar, pwedeng ikamatay ni patient yan. Pwede kasing magkaroon ng failure sa kanyang organ. Check the feet every day for cuts and blisters. Kasi wag mong hayaang lumala kung meron man yan. So, dapat, kasi prone na sa infection si patient. So, kailangan maagapan yan. Okay, magamot ka agad. And do not smoke. It is very important. Why? Bakit kailangan hindi mag-smoke si patient? Sabi nga nila, chemicals in cigarettes could harm the cells in your body and may cause inflammation. This will also make your cells stop responding to insulin. Okay? Sabi nila, yung patient daw na nag-i-smoke, mas higher ang kanyang or mas increase ang kanyang risk na mag-develop ng belly fat. Tapos, pwede rin maging overweight si patient. So, yung nicotine na yan, hindi siya maganda kasi it may increase the blood sugar level. Okay? Keep blood sugars normal. So, kaya kailangan you advise the patient to monitor their blood sugar. Avoid the two common diabetic problems, hypoglycemic and hyperglycemic. Kapag hypoglycemic, sobrang baba ng sugar. Hyperglycemic, sobrang taas ng sugar doon sa kanyang blood vessels. Both has complication. Pag sobrang taas, pwede rin, yun nga, magkaroon ng failure. Sobrang mababa, the same. Magkakaroon sila ng bad effect to the body of the client. So, this is an example of your dietary prescription, no? Assessment of DBW and caloric requirement. So, ito yung simpleng gamit natin rule of the thumb, no? Yung caloric requirement. 50 grams times na kaagad doon sa kanyang sedentary activity. So, halimbawa, si patient, yung 50 kilograms dito is the DBW of the patient. So, tapos ka nang mag-compute ng iyong Tannhausers. So, you're done computing for DBW. Nakuha mo na yung 50 kilograms ang kanyang DBW. Tapos, nakuha mo na yung kung ano yung kanyang normal weight and sedentary activity. Ayan yun. So, multiply 50 kilograms multiplied by 30. So, that will give you 150 kilocalories for a specific client. So, how will you translate that prescription into CHO, protein, and fat allowances? You have to note that for the patient who has diabetes, the recommended protein is 1.12 grams per kilogram. And for the CHO, 45% to 65%. And for the fat, 25% to 30%. So, paano mo gagawin yan? So, in this example, you have to get the protein muna. So, halimbawa, 50 kilograms ang patient multiplied by 1.12 gram per kilogram for the patient. So, that is 56 grams. And the 56 grams, ilan ba ang 56 grams? Ilan ba yung ano mo kanina, TER mo or yung calorie requirement? Diba na-compute natin is 1,500 yun. Ililes mo ngayon yung protein. Ang protein ilan? 56 grams. Siyempre, you have to convert that into calories. To convert that, you have to multiply 56 by 4. So, that will give you 220 kilocalories. So, 1,500 less your 220 kilocalories, your protein. So, you still have 1,280 for your non-protein. Ano ba yung non-protein na yun? Your CHO and your fats. So, you give 65% for your CHO. So, kukunin mo ngayon yung 65% from 1,280. So, that will give you 832 kilocalories. Okay? So, para makuha naman ng grams, you have to divide it by 4 and that will give you 208 grams. For fats, ang inalat natin here is, tama ba? 90, 100, no? 9 sa 100. Ang fat na inalat natin dito is 35%. Okay. Kasi kaya 100% to 100% of 1,280. Kinuha na kasi natin yung for the protein, di ba? So, kaya 35% pa rin siya. Pag kinompute mo yung 65% plus 35%, a total of 100. Ama, bakit 100? Bakit nawala si protein dyan? Tandaan nyo, kinuha nyo na yung grams kay protein doon sa 1,500. So, dito naka-base na lang tayo sa 1,280 na less na yung protein. So, for fats, again, 35% of 1,280, that will give you 448 kilocalories. And then, convert it into grams by dividing it by 9. Then, you get your 50 grams for fats. So, ilalagay na natin siya dito para mas madaling intindihin. So, the entire prescription, your total energy requirement is 1,500 kilocalories. So, kailangan mong i-convert into grams. Why do you need to convert it into grams? Kasi hindi naman natin mami-measure yung kanin, yung tawag dito. Usually, ang ginagamit natin pang measure dun sa mga food is by grams, diba? Tinitimbang natin sila. Okay, so andyan na yung ating prescription. And then you have your food exchange list now. So, in this example, so nagbigay ng 2 exchanges of CHO. Diba meron tayong 3? 3 ang ating constant. 1 exchange of CHO is equal to 3 since you have 2. So, that will give you 6. I'm sure lahat kayo alam nyo na ito kung paano. So, meron tayong vegetable, fruit, and milk. So, pag kinonvert natin lahat yan, so, ayan na tayo. Meron tayong 32, 120, 125. Tapos, yan, dito meron tayong rice. Okay, 700. Okay. So, lahat yan, this is just an example because I know, you know how to do it. So, diba, alam nyo na yan kung paano mag-convert, paano kunin ang exchanges. So, for those hindi pa talaga naintindihan, sige, babalikan natin. Okay. So, ang total calories mo, ito, from your vegetable, fruit, milk, so meron kang CHO here na pag kinompute natin, 30 plus 12, that is 42. So, 48 grams of CHO. Okay? So, yun yung, para makuha mo yun, meron kang 48 grams. Ilan nga ba yung required mo na CHO? Ayan, 208 ang iyong requirement na CHO. So, from 208, meron ka nang nagamit na 48 grams. Okay. So, para makuha mo yun, 208 minus 48 and you divide it by 23 grams para makuha mo yung exchanges mo kung ilan pa yung natira mo for your rice. And then here you have your 6.95 to 7 exchange of rice. You have to remember that one exchange of rice depende sa anong klaseng rice yan, or is it di lang naman kasi rice lang yung nakalagay dyan. Nakalagay dyan rice, but your rice could be your bread, could be your may different form of rice, pwedeng steam, pwedeng lugaw, or etc. So, you have to check your FELS. And then, here, for the protein, so, ganun pa rin, yung kukunin mo, 55 grams, ang total mo doon na nagamit mo na is 24, na na-furnished by the food groups. You have to divide it by 8, and that will give you 3.87 or 4 exchanges of protein. So, meron ka pang 4 exchanges of protein. So, i-breakdown mo lang yan dyan. Okay. So, same then with your fats. So, alam ko magaling na kayo dito. I'm sure of that. So, meat, ayan, meat of medium fat and low fat. Yung sa meat and fish mo dyan. The total is actually, sorry, nabubura ang total. 1,500 plus ang total nito. Yung kilocalories na kinakailangan. So, tama lang din naman siya doon sa ating TR requirement. So, let us now move on to our next topic for this week, your cardiovascular disease. So, when we say cardiovascular disease, it is actually a class of diseases that involves the heart or the blood vessels. So, it could include coronary artery disease such as angina and myocardial infarction, or commonly known as heart attack. Okay? So, the top 10 leading cause of death in the world. So, number 1, ischemic heart attack. So, this is under your cardiovascular disease. So, ano nga ba ischemic heart attack? So, later, meron na yan doon sa ating next discussion. Okay. So, usually, yung ischemic heart disease, just to give you a brief overview, okay, or introduction about ischemic heart disease, it develops when the cholesterol particles in the blood begins to accumulate on the walls. Okay, so dumami yung cholesterol, nag-accumulate doon sa walls ng iyong blood vessels that may alter the supply of blood to the heart. So mahirapang magkaroon ng blood supply to the heart, so nagkakaroon ng ischemic heart disease. So di ba nakakakaba? Ito yung number 1. Okay. So, under your cardiovascular disease, kasama dito ang hypertension. Diba? Kasi doon naman talaga mag-i-start. So, bakit pa nagkaroon ng hypertension? Tumataas. Kasi, tumataas ang pressure. Kasi nga, nagkakaroon na ng may mga cholesterol doon, so plaques doon sa iyong blood vessels. So parang host lang yan pag nagdilig ka ng halaman. So harangan mo ng konti yung host, di ba, tataas ang pressure. So the same lang yan. So kapag may nakaharang na doon, may nakabara na doon sa flow, so tataas yung blood pressure. So kapag tumaas yung blood pressure, possible din na pwedeng may pumutok dyan. Okay, diba? Kapag tulad na lang din yan ng hose, pag tinaasan mong pressure, pwedeng may nabasag doon, pwedeng may natanggal. So, ganun siya. So, the causes of hypertension is, lalo na kapag mahilig ka sa maalat, so sodium intake to 150 milliequivalent or 3.5 sodium to 350 milliequivalent or 8.2 grams of sodium. So, napakataas ang sodium content niya. Obesity, syempre, cause of hypertension. Decrease ang potassium intake. Smoking, okay, kasi nga si nicotine, pwede siyang magdagdag doon na parang yung blood vessels mo is lalong lalapot siya. Alcohol consumption and other non-nutritional factors could be hereditary, okay, or sa lahi, okay, genetic. So, how will you manage hypertension is, of course, number 1 is pharmacologic therapies kapag andyan na talaga ang hypertension. Okay, kapag wala pa, hindi pa nag-insist yung hypertension, pwede pa yung diet lang muna, di ba? Kung medyo mababa pa, pataas na yung blood pressure, so pwedeng diet muna, exercises. Pero pag hindi na kaya, is of course, you have to do the pharmacologic therapies. And of course, diet intervention, magbawas ka ng saturated fats, magbawas ng sugar, ng sodium, yun yung very important. Weight reduction, syempre automatic, papasok din yun. So weight reduction can be done by exercising. And moderate sodium restriction, moderation of alcohol intake, and increase intakes of calcium, potassium, and magnesium. Kasi ito yung makakatulong para ma-normalize ang blood pressure. Okay. So, for diet therapy for those who have hypertension, so dapat yung sodium intake should be limited to 500 milligrams per day. So, for fats, you have to use unsaturated oils, or you have to tell the patient, ano ba yung mga unsaturated oils? Ito yung mga ginagamit nilang olive oils, yan, mga ganyan. Calories, use at least 50% of carbohydrates. So, dapat kapag hypertensive na, 50% na lang dapat yung carbohydrates. Potassium, calcium, magnesium should be given at least 500 milligrams per day intake. And fluid, usual variety is allowed. So, depende rin sa need kung gaano. Pero diba, 6 to 8 glasses a day dapat yung normal fluid intake or more than that. But not super, di naman sobra-sobra as I mentioned before. Pwede rin magkaroon kasi ng fluid overload or fluid toxicity. So, meron ding tinatawag, meron ding diabetic approach or dietary approach to stop hypertension that is called as DASH. Okay. So, DASH diet or dietary approach to stop hypertension. So, high quantities of fruits ang binibigay dito, vegetables, and emphasizes low-fat dairy products, whole grains dapat, poultry, fish, and nuts. Yun yung mga dapat lang kainin ni patient. So, ito yung DASH diet, no? Parang in a form of, ano rin siya, yan, diagram. So, nakalagay dito kung ilang serving per day. So, like for example here, yung whole grain, you have to give at least 6 to 8 serving per day. Ano bang pinakamababa dito? Yung fat-free or low-fat dairy. Yan, yung fats and oil. So, dapat at least 2 to 3 serving per day. So, guidelines for lowering fat and cholesterol in diet. So, include up to 6 ounces of lean meat, fish, or skinless poultry per day. Include pasta, rice, beans, or vegetables in main dish to decrease amount of meat. Diba? Trim visible fats. Ano ba yung visible fats? Yung skim fat from meat juices, drain fat after browning. Yung mga visible fats na nakikita mo talaga doon, taba. Yung taba doon sa kinakain, yung mga butter, yan. Bake, broil, boil, roast, poach, steam, saute, stir fry, or microwave. Ang dapat lang na way of cooking. So, yung mga deep fry ang iiwasan mo here. Use olive oil or canola oil. So, ito talaga yung advice ng mga doctors. Pero may mga issues na naman about canola oils. But I was not able to validate it. Kasi may mga issues about that na hindi rin daw pala siya healthy. Hindi daw nag-i-exist. So, pero kulang pa ang aking research about that. You can do your own research about canola oil. Or if it is nutritious ba? Or is it okay or not? Limit to 5 to 8 teaspoons per day lang dapat. And increase use of soybean products, more of protein, diba? Increase intake of soluble fiber, legumes, oats, barley, broccoli, apples, citrus fruits. Decrease intake of sugar, so bawasan ng sugar. Use antioxidant supplements like vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene. Choose low-fat or non-fat dairy products and limit 3 to 4 egg yolks per week. So, kumusta naman ang mga nagkiketo diet, di ba? They are eating 4 eggs a day, 4 to 5 eggs a day. So, napakataas. Nakita naman natin, based on research, napakataas ng kanyang cholesterol level. So, you have to validate that. You have to validate, you have to check research kung ano ba talaga ang maganda. Limit intake of organ meats, lalo na yung liver na napakataas ang cholesterol, kidneys, and gizzards. Naku, napakasarap pa naman ng adobong atay ng manok. Favorite ko pa naman yun. Oh no. Include 5 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. And include 6 or more serving of breads, cereals, grains per day. So, mas maganda daw yung breads. Okay? So, this is another table for sodium restricted diet. So, depende kung ilan ang restriction. So, ito yung mga sample lang kung ilan. So, halimbawa, naka-base tayo sa 500 mg restrictions. Oh no, pagka naka 500 mg restriction ng patient, no salt in cooking. Oh my God, anong lasa nun, diba? Parang hindi ko kaya yun. No added salt at table. Avoid high sodium food. Limit milk to 1 cup per day kasi may sodium content din yun. Salt-free butter, bread, vegetables, and starches. Diba? Napakahirap. Walang salt. Saan ba dito may small amount? Buti sana kung 4 grams restriction, diba? Sa 4 grams restriction, pwede kang magkaroon ng small amount of salt in cooking. So, ngayon pa lang, habang bata pa kayo, you have to control your sodium intake. Naku, napakasarap pa naman ng tuyo. Okay. So, another disease here is the atherosclerosis. Okay, atherosclerosis. So, sa atherosclerosis, nagkaroon ng mga plaque formation. So, later, on the next slides, madidiscuss ko yan. So, the diet therapy for those patients who or diagnosed with atherosclerosis is that dapat may TLC. So, TLC na yon, hindi yung tender loving care. It's a therapeutic lifestyle changes or your DASH, di ba? Ito yung for hypertensive client diet. Low in fat or low in total fat. So, dapat ang recommended is 25 to 35% ang recommended for unsaturated fat. 70% less than ang saturated fat. Ang CHO, 50 to 60% of total calories, and for protein, approximately 15%. Okay. Yan, ito na yung sinasabi kong atherosclerosis. Okay. So, napapansin nyo dyan, halimbawa ito yung heart, no? So, nagkaroon na ng atherosclerosis ang mga blood vessels. So, ito yung nakikita mo yung normal artery. So, napakaganda. Kapag medyo young ka pa, hindi pa masyadong madami ang nakakain mong fats, masyado pang active ang iyong lifestyle, naglalaro, nagaganyon. Pero habang tumatanda ka, ayan, bumababa na ang lifestyle, nagiging sedentary na yung lifestyle, ayun na, nagbibigyan na yung pagkakaroon ng cholesterol plaque. As you can see here, the early injury, may konti ng plaque dyan. So, parang ano rin yan, yung parang taba ng baka. Kinakain natin yung sa bone marrow. Okay? So, pag advanced cholesterol plaque na, so significant atherosclerosis na yan. So, nakita nyo yung blood vessels. Paano pa dadaloy dyan yung blood? So, you have to remember na yung blood vessels na yan, yung blood is very important sa ating body kasi fluid yan. Diba? Ang katawan natin is composed of fluid. Ang blood ang nagkikarry ng oxygenated blood. Nagkikarry ng oxygen. Nagkikarry ng nutrients to be used by your body for function, para mabuhay tayo. Kung barado na yan, so what will happen? Hindi na makakadaloy dyan. Tataas na ang blood pressure. And nagkaroon na ng blood clot kasi syempre, occluded na siya. May occlusion na. So, hindi na nakakadaloy ng maayos yung blood flow. So, the tendency is magkakaroon ng blood clot. Pag nagkaroon ng blood clot, pwedeng pumutok. So, pag nagkaroon ng blood clot, pwedeng wala ng supply, decrease ng blood supply to your organs, especially to your heart and to your brain. So, yan yung atherosclerosis. Then, kapag nagkaroon ng ganun, pwedeng magkaroon ng cardiovascular accident or known as ischemic stroke or known as stroke. Diba? It is defined as loss of brain function that occurs when the blood supply to any part of the brain is interrupted, resulting in tissue death. So, dahil wala na. So, pwedeng mamatay yung tissue ng part ng iyong brain. So, nagkaroon ng blockage, ayan, so pwedeng pumutok dyan, may pumutok na ugat, sabi nga nila, or pwedeng magkaroon ng ischemic stroke, ibig sabihin may namatay na tissue doon sa part of your brain. So, cardiovascular accident, also known as cerebrovascular accident. This is also known as cerebrovascular accident or CVA. So, left CVA, yan, ibig sabihin left brain yung affected. Pag left brain yung affected, possible magkaroon ng paralyzed doon sa right side or hemiplegia, known as hemiplegia. So, pwedeng magkaroon ng impaired speech and language. Diba? Yung na-stroke, hindi sila makapagsalita o slurred yung kanilang speech. Slow yung performance, mabagal gumalaw. Visual deficits, may iba pa akong nakikita na naduduling talaga sila because affected na rin yung mga optic nerve. Okay? So, pwedeng magkaroon ng depression, anxiety, impaired din yung comprehension nila. Hindi na nila masyadong maintindihan yung mga bagay-bagay. Bakit nagkaroon ng impaired ng comprehension? Kasi nga, meron ng part sa brain na na-damage. And right CVA or right cerebrovascular accident. So, ibig sabihin, right brain ang damage. But, magkakaroon ng left body weakness. So, nagkakaroon ng paralysis doon sa left side of the patient. Karoon ng spatial perceptual deficits. No? And tends to minimize problem. short attention span, magkaroon ng visual deficit din, then impaired judgment, impulsive, impaired time concept. So, sabi niya, I don't feel where my left side is. So, ganun lang ang itsura ng merong stroke na patient. So, ito yung mga possible complications or makikita natin sa kanila. So, hindi ko na isa-isahin yan since I know that this will be discussed again in your MS. So, the diet therapy for those patients experiencing cardiovascular accident or cerebrovascular accident, it will usually start with NPO, with IV therapy. Okay? So, when you say NPO, nothing per orem. So, wala mo nang kakainin. So, IV therapy lang muna. So, depende doon sa situation ni patient. Kasi pag na-stroke si patient, of course, halos lahat ng kanyang functions ng kanyang system, diba, affected. Pagka malala pa talaga, so hindi talaga kaya ni patient, diba, napansin nyo naman, pag stroke, talagang parang lantang gulay, depende sa level of stroke, no? So, pwedeng tube feeding. So, kinakailangan mo na ang tube feeding dito. Then, progress of diet, ito yung progress of diet, pwedeng mag-start siya as NPO, then clear liquid, pwedeng, kung kaya niya, pure red liquid, and mechanical soft diet na siya. Okay? So, for cardiovascular accident or CVA, ito yung mga recommended, no calories. For the calories, 45 kilocalories per kilogram. And for fat, so restrict cholesterol to no more than 300 milligrams per day. And for protein, 1.2 to 1.5 kilograms or grams per kilogram. And for the carbohydrates, the amount is estimated based on average recommendations naman. So for vitamins and minerals, you can give vitamin C, magnesium, and vitamin E. And for the fluids, you can give 6 to 8 cups of fluid per day. So depende kung ilan ang kinakailangan. So another problem or heart disease, no? Coronary heart disease. So, pinag-uusapan natin ang problemang puso ngayon. Okay. So, coronary heart disease. So, also known as your ischemic heart disease, yun nga yung number 1 leading cause of death around the world. Or it could be known as coronary artery disease or CAD, coronary occlusion. So, ang dami niyang pangalan. Atherosclerotic heart disease or ASH, and coronary thrombosis. And this is a common form of coronary heart disease. So, it is a condition in which the oxygen supply to the myocardium or your heart muscles is inadequate due to atherosclerosis. So, ano nga ba yung atherosclerosis? Inadequate kasi nagkaroon ng occlusion, ng formation of plaques in the blood vessels that altered blood circulation. So, hypertrophy of the cardiac muscle kasi hindi siya makapag-pump ng maayos. So, there are 2 categories under your coronary heart disease known as the angina pectoris or AP and the myocardial infarction. So, the diet therapy for those who have coronary heart disease, you can also advise or recommend therapeutic lifestyle changes or your TLC and maintenance diet after surgery. Of course, dapat controlled na yung calories and no more than 30% of calories as fat, and sodium restriction is 2 to 4 grams daily. And adequate calcium, magnesium, and potassium should be given. Increase din yung intake of folic acid, B1, B6, and B12. Fiber intake of 25 to 30 milligrams per daily. Yun yung recommended natin for them. So, congestive heart failures, the heart fails to maintain satisfactory circulation of the body, for various metabolic needs. It is a result in reduced heart pumping specific efficiency. So, hindi nagpa-pump ng maayos ang heart, The lower two chamber leading to inadequate blood circulation, congestion in liver and lungs, and blood circulation. So, nagkakaroon ng ganong pangyayari. So, the management of congestive heart failure is, of course, dietary, modifying the diet of the patient. So, kailangan din ni patient ng rest. Kailangan din ng pahinga dahil baka sobrang pagod si patient. Diuretics. Bakit kailangan ng diuretics? Kasi possible nagkaroon ng actually, kayong may mga congestive heart failure, nagkaroon din sila ng mga edema, nagkaroon din sila ng mga manas. Kasi nga, poor na yung blood circulation, hindi na makadaloy ng maayos. Pati yung sodium affected na, or kapag tumaas ang sodium doon sa body naman, instead na yung fluid ay umikot, pwede siyang ma-absorb na lang noong cells. Papasok siya doon sa cells, so nagkakos din ng edema. So, kaya kailangan din ng diuretics kasi kapag masyadong marami ang fluids, pwede rin mahirapan si heart. Mahirapan din ang heart, karoon din ng fluid overload doon sa heart. Vasodilators is of course to dilate the blood vessels kasi constricted nga, and oxygen therapy kasi poor na rin ang oxygen doon sa client's body. So the diet therapy for those who have congestive heart failure is that the sodium should be restricted to 2 to 3 grams per day, and the fluid should be less than 2 liters per day. So, ito yung sinasabi ko na hindi lahat, sinasabi natin maganda ang water intake. Dapat marami ang tubig na inumin, but hindi lahat ng sobra ay maganda sa katawan. Pwede rin kasing magkaroon nga ng fluid overload, mahirapan si heart na mag-pump. Daily multivitamins and mineral supplementation. For energy, you have to restrict calorie intake. For protein, the recommended allowance for protein is 1.1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram. For the fluid, again, 1 to 2 liters per day, and then you have to give vitamins and minerals. Okay. For congestive heart failure, the signs and symptoms, meron din kasi tayong left side and right side failure. So, for the left side, ito yung pinakatatandaan nyo first. For right side, vacant. Okay, forced. Ano bang meron? Pag left side ang affected, pwedeng magkaroon ng fatigue, autopnea, or difficulty of breathing, lalo na pag nakahinga. Rales, restlessness, cyanotic, kasi poor nga ang circulation. So, poor din ang blood supply. Extreme weakness and dyspnea, difficulty of breathing. For the right side, may feeling of bloating, anorexia, loss of appetite, no? Cyanosis or pull yung legs, oliguria, so increased urination ng oliguria, nausea, edema, and distended neck veins. So I think you have remembered your physical, di ba? Nag-physical assessment tayo in the previous semester. Kapag may congestive heart failure, kitang-kita dito yung distended neck veins. Okay. Maraming masyado ang kanyang fluid. So, right side failure. So, another, figure para makita nyo. So, ang right side failure, ayan, magkaroon siya ng dependent edema. So, lumalaki ang kanyang paa. May distended jugular veins. Ayan, as na-mention ko na yan in the previous slides. For right-sided heart failure, ito naman yung kanyang symptoms or mga simptomas. So, cardiac surgery. So, pwede tayong magkaroon ng cardiac surgery. Depende na doon sa problem talaga na exist sa patient. So, matatagpuan nyo itong mga to during your MS. So, ma-discuss to in details by Sir Jason or kung sino man yung mag-handle. Okay? Meron tayong coronary artery bypass graft or known as CABG. Okay, so this kind of surgery, it redirects the blood around a section of a black or partially blocked artery in your heart. to improve blood flow to your heart muscle. So actually, the procedure involves taking a healthy blood vessels from your legs. So si surgeon, kukuha siya ng healthy blood vessels from your legs, arm, or chest. And then, connecting it beyond the blocked arteries. Ito yung gagamitin in your heart. And then the percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty or PTCA. This is actually a minimal invasive procedure to open up a blocked coronary arteries, allowing blood to circulate unobstructed to the heart muscle. So, gano'n naman ang ginagawa. For cardiac transplant, of course, transplant, from the word transplant, it is an operation in which a failing or diseased heart is replaced with a healthier heart. So, kailangan natin dito ng donor ng heart. Okay. So, ito yung ginagawa sa coronary artery bypass. Yan, pwedeng single. So, binaypass nga siya direct dyan sa yung black, ay oxygenated blood kapag blue. Double, yan, double, triple, and quadruple. Sabi dito, although CABG or coronary artery bypass that does not actually cure heart diseases, but it can help, no? It can help the heart, or it can ease the symptoms kasi pwedeng matanggal yung blockages kasi nga nag-bypass na siya, so pwedeng matanggal yung symptoms like chest pain and shortness of breath. So, this is the percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty. So, paano maginawa dyan? So, the balloon tip catheter is positioned in the artery. Okay? And then, the uninflated balloon is centered in the obstruction. Kung nasaan merong obstruction. The balloon is then inflated, okay, which flattens the plaque against the artery wall. So, pinaplaten niya. Tinutulak niyang ganon yung naka-obstruct na plaques dyan. And then, the balloon is removed and the artery is left unoccluded. So, natanggal na yung or nasa gilid na yung mga plaques para maka-flow ang blood or oxygenated blood normally. So, ito naman yung itsura ng heart transplant na, of course, papalitan talaga or yan, i-replace ng healthy heart yung diseased heart. So, napakahirap namang maghanap nito. And it cost $1 million for that kind of surgery. So, diet therapy for those who undergo a CABG and PTCA. So, you have to increase the total calories, increase at least 20 to 30% of total calories. Bakit? Of course, kinakailangan niya ng healing. Protein should be 1.2 grams per kilogram, and modifications of sodium, cholesterol, saturated fat, fluid, and small frequent feeding lang dapat. So, dapat konti ang sodium kasi nga, di ba, mataas ang sodium, pwedeng tumaas din yung kasi si sodium naman at saka si water ang laging magkasama. So, ang mangyayari kasi kapag marami kang sodium, marami din ang water retention. So, magre-retain ang water to your body. So, nagiging kakaroon ng edema ang patient. And then, of course, the therapeutic diet mo, yung TLC natin. Okay? And then, cardiac transplant. For the cardiac transplant, you have to increase calorie, increase protein. So, 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram. And fluid restriction to 1 liter per day. So, ilang glasses lang ba ang 1 liter per? Diba 1 liter, you have to check that. At least 6 glasses of water per day. Kasi nga, pag sobra din, pag over din yung water, as I mentioned earlier, pwedeng magkaroon ng fluid overload doon sa heart or mahirapan si heart. Kasi, syempre, yung water, diba, iikot siya doon sa heart mo. So, the more na mahihirapan yung activity ng heart kapag masyado marami ang iyong intake of water. So, that actually end my discussion for this week. So, I hope you learned something from it. So, God bless!